Okay, thank you. So you're saying that no other teachers had taught you unit one like complete, right? So I'll start with you. I have already started with you guys with unit one. So I'll complete unit one today. Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
I was initially thinking I'll do unit two. If you guys were in this class last time, I think this might have been the last slide that we stopped, right? Just to remind you guys, let me just go to, this was what we were doing. We started with structuralism, then we followed up with functionalism, pragmatism, associationism, and behaviorism. So we stopped at behaviorism. Can you guys say yes? You remember? Yes. Even if you don't remember, keep on saying yes. It motivates me, okay? Even I need motivation. Yes, but if you don't know, please ask, all right? So yes, we stopped at behaviorism and then we will touch a bit of Gestalt because Gestalt का हम इतना नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि यूनिट 2 में भी है Gestalt का, ठीक है? And then we will end with emergence of cognitive psychology. All right. I hope you remember all this topic that we did last time, structuralism, functionalism, and all that. All right. So this was the last slide that we stopped at, and I am now moving forward. Okay. Okay. So brief history of cognitive psychology. Gestalt में, the whole is more than the sum of its part. The whole is more than the sum of its part. What does this mean? जो सारे है, it's more than little bits of it, right? Like for example, I have this watch, right? This watch, if we take it apart, even this can be further divided into many parts. But as a whole, it becomes a watch. The whole is greater than the sum of its part. आप लोग हो भी, when you are together, you are BA honors psychology, right? But separately, you are not a class of BA honors psychology. हम लाइफ में ये कैसे यूज़ करते हैं? Yes, sure, please. Sometimes, let's go a bit into social psychology, okay? How our mind works. We tend to see something as a whole rather than as parts, okay? Being from Northeast, I'll use the example of, let's say, Northeast India, okay? So let's say you see someone from Northeast and the first thing that might come to your mind is the stereotypical notion of what you believe Northeast people are supposed to be like, right? Why? Because your mind has already decided that it's a whole. हेली सर का है मेरे लिए आपने दिया नहीं मेरा दे दो right? You tend to think the whole. So the moment you see a Northeast person, the first thing that might be coming to your mind is, oh, they eat rice, right? Because that's what you think about the whole. You see the whole first, okay? Any other thing about, okay, let's talk about Indian. Let's talk about Asian. Asian as a whole, okay? Asian as a whole, we believe there's a stereotypical notion that Asians are very good at math. So the moment you see an Asian, he must be someone who is academically very well. He must be someone who does engineering if it's a guy, or medical if it's a girl, right? He must be someone who is so good at math, does well in academics and all, because that's the whole we see. But individually, is it they are different, right? Like you guys, you are BA honors psychology, but individually you're very different. But the moment we see a particular group, we end up thinking, we end up understanding that whole concept. Yes.
Another example is a meme.
Other example is a?
Another example is
Mean.
meme, like food.
Food. Yes. Like if I see a North Indian, I'll think like roti. You know, you will like roti, right? So because that's the stereotypical notion that we have, we tend to look at things as a whole. And that's how our relationship is also built, right? So you see, क्या हुआ? Register, yeah? Okay. Other example can be, you see a woman driving and very stereotypical, I'm giving a very stereotypical example, okay? Then you'll see bad driver, right? Okay. Okay, yes. So this is how our mind works. So because our mind is quite quick at judging, our mind is quite quick at completing things, okay? So these are some examples of Gestalt laws, okay? So you see dots, but then you end up dividing this mentally. Why? Red, blue. Because the red are similars and the blue colored are similars. You end up dividing it, laws of similarity, right? Then you have laws of continuity. Like even if they are like haphazard, you kind of like still continue it and you group them into one, right? Laws of closure. See, what is this shape? It's a diamond shape, rhombus, right? There are holes here. The parts are broken, but why do you still say it's a diamond shape? Because, yes, because your mind is telling you that's the shape, right? So even if I draw a semicircle like this, you will still perceive it as a circle. Why? Because our mind completes it for us, right? And even, yes, law of proximity. So they are dots, blue colored dots, but still you group them into two different groups. Why? Because
We are aligning.
yes, they are separated by something on the middle, right? They are grouped together, right? And law of common region. See, these two dots are closer, but still, why do we group the more further one up together? These two are closer, but we tend to group these two together and we tend to group these two together. Why? Because there's a circle, right? So our mind works like that. So no matter, excuse me, so no matter what, our mind tend to complete things for us. All right, so even in relationship also, yes, class, please be quiet. Even in relationship also, this usually happen when we are in a relationship with someone, be it friendship, be it with our parents, be it with a partner that we really want to spend our life with. You end up having expectations. Yes, please quiet down, please settle down. You can come this side also. Morning. All right. Yes, please settle down, settle down. Like I was saying, like in a relationship also, in any kind of relationship, you tend to have an expectation. Yes, settle down. and you tend to have an expectation, and because of that expectation your mind is already telling you what you should be getting. So you end up having such kind of relationship where you might be satisfied, you might be dissatisfied, because your mind already kind of like completes what is supposed to be for you. Okay, so yeah, according to this view, we cannot fully understand behavior when we only break phenomena down into smaller parts. So we have to know what the whole is, so that we can understand the behavior, the individual also. All right. So for me to understand, guys, settle down. Please be quiet. You'll have lots of time to talk after this class, okay? I know you guys are very happy to meet each other, but settle down. All right. Yes. Let's read this again. Uh,
According to the view, we cannot fully understand behavior when we only break phenomena down into smaller parts.
So like even if I want to understand a behavior, what's your name? Huh? Chavi. If I want to understand Chavi's behavior, I have to know the whole part also. We cannot really understand behavior when we only break phenomena down into smaller parts. So for me to understand Chavi's behavior, I have to know the whole of Chavi. What is she like? For me to understand you guys, I have to see not only from the whole, but break down into individual parts, but as a whole also. So I need to be able to understand what this whole is. All right. So the whole is greater than the sum of its part. For me to understand a behavior, I have to understand the whole parts. All right. For me to understand an individual from not only do I understand her, but I have to understand the culture also. All right. Not only as an individual. For me to understand a person from North India, it's not only him that I'll be understanding, but the culture as well, right? So this is Gestalt psychology. How is it different from behaviorism? How is it different from behaviorism? What was behaviorism?
It is actually how we react to the stimuli and how our behavior changes according to that.
Yes. So in behaviorism, we talked about, guys, in behaviorism, we talked about observable behavior. You do something and that's your behavior. You eat popcorn whenever you go to the movie. That's a behavior, right? You brush your teeth when you wake up in the morning. That's also a behavior. Or you don't want to listen to your mother, and whenever your mother tells you to do something and you're like, no, I don't want to, and you go out of the house. That's a behavior. That's the observable behavior. But what is Gestalt saying? It's not only those particular behavior that you are going to view, you are going to view the whole thing. You are going to look at the whole individual as it is and understand the behavior. Understand the behavior from that whole parts. You understand? Right? The whole is greater than the sum of its part, okay? Excuse me. Yes, so, yeah, cognitivism, from here comes the emergence of cognitive psychology, okay? Cognitivism is the belief that most human behavior explains how humans think. So, whatever I do, it kinds of like tells you what I think. All right. So if I go back home, the moment I go back home, I wash my hand and I wash my face, you might be understanding that I am someone who likes cleanliness. Right. So if I meet someone and someone who is quite elder to me and I bow down like this, that's my behavior. You might say that, oh, she is quite respectful toward the elderly, right? But if in class I sit the way I want, I am like yawning, I'm sleeping, even in the teacher's presence, you might be understanding that She does not respect teacher. She does not really, maybe it's not only the teacher, but she does not really, she is not really respectful of others' presence. Just like that, right? So cognitivism is the belief that most human behavior explains how people think. So what I behave, how I behave, it tells other people about what I think. Okay? It rejects the behavioristic notion that psychologists should avoid studying mental processes just because they are unobservable. So behaviorism says that psychologists should study whatever we can observe, the behaviors that can be observed. But cognitive psychology says that it's not like that. Even if it's not observable, we should study mental processes. Why? Because it tells a lot about the behavior of the person. The mental processes can be studied from the behavior itself also. Okay? Excuse me. Yeah, so this is the brief history of cognitive psychology from structuralism, functionalism, pragmatism, associationism, behaviorism, gestalt, and down to emergence of cognitive psychology. Okay? Yes, guys, please stop murmuring in your seat. You can sit in the class if you want, but please quiet down because I have to shout a lot. There are lots of you. It's very, very tiring for me to continue to shout, okay? All right. From here, let's move on to nature of cognitive psychology, all right? Nature of cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology is the study of how people perceive, learn, remember, and think about information. Let's read that again. Cognitive psychology is the study of how people perceive, yes, how people perceive, learn, remember, and think about information. Okay, so here I have given the example of availability heuristic and advertisement. What is availability heuristic? Before availability heuristic, let's talk about heuristic. Heuristics are mental shortcuts you use to process information, okay? Heuristics are mental shortcuts. So whatever is available to us in the form of heuristics, we tend to go to them. All right, how many brands of fans do you know? Fans ka brand. What do you know? Usha, Bajaj, and Crompton. Philips, Crompton, Bajaj, Usha, Havells, okay. All right, so let's say tomorrow you have to buy fans for your home. What are the fans that you are likely to buy? There are around 20 brands on the shop. What are the brands you are likely to buy? Crompton, Havells, Bajaj, Philips. Why? Q. You have seen their advertisement? Right? Because they're well known. That's the availability heuristics. All of us know iPhone 15 has launched, right? 15 Pro, yes. Thanks for correcting me. iPhone 15 Pro launch. How many of you want the phone? No? If it was to be given free, would you want it? Of course. Right? But let's say you have iPhone 15 Pro, right? iPhone 15 Pro, you have that option. And add another one, you have Micromax. Micromax ka, let's say it costs around 50,000 ka. Right, which one? And then you have Samsung also. And there are other 2-3 phones which are very good. It has the design, Harry Potter design and all, or maybe it might even have Taylor Swift ka. I don't know how many of you Taylor Swift's fan. But then, but then you have many phones lined up. What phones are you likely to choose? Google Pixel? OnePlus. What else? Samsung. Why do you choose this phone? Let me ask you. Because they're well known? They spend a lot of money on marketing, right? Guys, settle down. This is one of the reasons why even established brands such as Samsung, such as iPhone, they spend a lot of money on marketing because they know that the more familiar our brain is with a product, the more likely we are going to buy that product, right? Availability heuristic, right? So even if you might know, like even let's say Oppo phone, right? Even if a Oppo phone is really good, your phone. Even if Oppo phone is really good, you might still not go for that in comparison to Samsung. Why? Because Samsung, it's a known brand. And if any of you watches Korean drama also, Korean drama, always Samsung. That's a form of advertisement, the phone that they use in their drama. The same with what has been happening, yes guys, the same with what has been happening with eating also. How many of you watch animes? Right? I am sure all these people who watches anime are into eating ramen. Right? Why? Because that's what we see. Even Korean. Most of you who watches Korean drama, you might be very interested in eating Korean food. Why? Because that's what you see. It becomes very familiar, right? Availability heuristic. Yes, class. Please be quiet. Please don't talk among yourselves so much. You'll have 15 minutes of talking to each other after this class, okay? Yes, cognitive psychology can help us understand much of what goes on in our everyday lives. Ultimately, cognitive psychologists hope to learn how people think by studying how people have thoughts about thinking. Yes, what happened? Should I stop? Then can you please stop? It's very dizzying for me to shout and then to hear your voice. I am unable to hear my voice also sometimes. Okay. Yes, so research methods of studying cognitive psychology. The first one is laboratory or other controlled experiments. Then neuroscientific research, self-reports, case studies, naturalistic observations, and computer simulations and AI. Computer simulations and AI, it's a very new field. It's a very interesting field. This is where I think most cognitive psychology are also going. In Germany also there is a university that deals with this. One of our previous year students, I think she is into that field. So it's a booming field, okay? This computer simulations and AI. One example is how, you feed in the data of, let's say, you feed in the data of how different people might be reacting to different situations. Let's say that, and then we give them a situation, okay, through the AI. So the situation can be, you have failed your BA class, all right, BA final exam. So how will the person react? So by feeding into, we might get the reaction from that AI, and we will understand how different people may react to different situation. That's one example, okay? Naturalistic observation. How does naturalistic observation work? You simply view them in the natural environment. You make your observation and you study. This is similar to some ethnographic study also. Guys, right? So naturalistic observation is something that is very frequently used. You can simply go and view the person in their natural environment. You can make home visits, or you can situate yourself in a restaurant and view whatever, study you want to see, right? Case study. Case study is also one of the widest used research methods. You take up a case and you study that case and you do your analysis. Self-reports. Self-reports will be like an autobiography type, but then it's more like, you write down whatever that you are. It can make use of questionnaires also. Those questionnaires, let's say, for example, Rosenberg self-esteem questionnaire. That's something that you might be doing by yourself. So using questionnaire, you can use self-reports, or maybe you can have a self-analysis also. Neuroscientific research is when you use methods such as, those tools which you may connect to your head, and then let's say you are given a situation. Let's say you are made to view a movie, okay? And the movie is really, really, really sad. And through that machine, they will understand, so when you are sad, what part of the brain is activated. Or maybe you will be made to watch a really, really funny movie, and as you laugh, what part of the brain is stimulated, all right, or activated, okay? Laboratory or other controlled experiment. This has been one of the most used method of behaviorist-oriented psychologists in the past, like the Little Albert experiment. How many of you know Little Albert experiment? No? Huh? Little Albert experiment. How many of you know? No one? Okay. Little Albert experiment no one knows Little Albert experiment? Okay. Laboratory or other controlled experiment. Okay. Little Albert experiment में क्या हुआ था कि there was a baby less than 1 year old, okay? He saw, let's say, a furry objects like a furry rabbit was brought to him. He loved that. He loved the soft fur, he loved it, but then what they did was they paired that object with a really, really annoying, scary sound. So whenever that object, that furry rabbit was brought to Little Albert, they would play the sound. Okay? So what? Huh? Whenever that object was brought to Little Albert, they played that scary, screechy sound. Okay? So what happened was, since they did it so many times, Little Albert paired that object. Yes, guys. Yes. What happened was Little Albert paired that furry object with that scary sound. So initially, he was not afraid of the furry object, the rabbit. But later on, he became very afraid of the furry object. Okay, this was an experiment that was done in a laboratory. Okay, so laboratory or other controlled experiments. So these are some of the research methods of studying cognitive psychology. Okay, moving on. Paradigms. Paradigms: information processing, connectionist, evolutionary, ecological. Okay, we will go one by one. Information processing. The information processing, this was given by Atkinson and Schriffin. It will be in your book also, okay? The information processing approach draws an analogy between, yes guys, Is it very difficult to be quiet? The information processing approach draws an analogy between human cognition and computerized processing of information. What does this mean? It simply means that according to them, our brain works similar to how the computer works. So there is input of information, there is processing of that information, and then there is the output response. Okay, so here if you see in the diagram, you detect the incoming information. Okay, so is it visual, is it yes, the Atkinson, right? Auditory, is it olfactory, is it smell, is it sound, right? And then it goes to your short-term memory. And if you feel it is important, then you may retain it in your long-term memory. Okay, so this is it. All right, so this is the information processing model. Moving forward, but this is very simplistic, right? From input to processing to output, right? This is very, very simple. Just like the computer data work, there is input, you type something, there is processing inside the computer, and then there is output, whatever you type, it is shown on the screen, right? The connectionist said that no. Yes. या इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोसेसिंग सेगमेंट डिवाइस होते हैं के मतलब क्या segments as in like there can be different inputs, no? अभी भी आपका input there are more than 2 inputs, no? Auditory हो गया, visual हो गया, even your sense, your skin, you can feel the fan and all these are going inside, and whatever it's been processed inside and output ho gaya. So you focus on what is important to you. Okay, so you focus on that and you may remember this lecture or you may not remember this lecture according to so many of your classes who are not paying attention. Atkinson-Shiffrin model. All right, so the connectionists say, no, that's not how it works. All right, it's too simplistic. What does the connectionist say? You might have already learned this in your class 11 or 12. All right, so this is the parallel processing. What they are saying that no, it's not only one way. All right. According to this, cognition as a network of connections among simple processing units, because the units are sometimes compared to neurons. So neuron in biopsychology class, you might have talked about neurons. What are neurons? They are the information transmitter of our brain. Right, of our brain. So neurons का बहुत ज़्यादा connection है. Whenever you learn a new information, there is a new connection. So that's also one of the reason why when you are a child, there are more connections that's happening than when you're an adult. Okay, so according to this connectionist approach, it's not very simple. It's not only one way. There are a lot of things that is going on at a time. All right, there's a lot of things. So what is the name? You might, when you meet a person, you know the name. You also look at whether the race of the person. You know whether is it female, male, or maybe nowadays culture, is it a they, them, or they or them? Then you understand, is the person a student, a professor, someone who has work? What type of car that the person drive, you know, what are their favorite items, what are the food that they like. So there are so many information that you are processing right, abhi. Right, for example, if I just go back, ये पढ़ो, ये क्या है? आपको कैसे बताए कि ये पैराडाइम है? देख के ना, right? Paradigm, right, paradigm. How is it possible for you to read paradigm just like this? Think. What is happening here as you read this? The first thing that happened is you identify P. Yes. The first thing that you identify is you P. P. P से P का sound क्या होता है? P, right? And then A. It's A, but it's pronounced A, right? R. You read it as R, but then your brains know it's R. And then you do it for the whole thing, right? And then it's not only identifying the single item. Then after that, your brain is working hard to say, okay, when I put it together, it will be paradigm. Now imagine now, how much work did your brain do to read this? All right, and it's not only identifying, the moment you have to read it out, you're saying, your brain is telling your mouth to say it, make the sound. So that's the connectionist approach. So the connectionist is saying, at an instant, there are so many things that is happening, and they happen in a parallel way. Okay, parallel as in at the same time. There are so many connections. All right, that's the connectionist. Evolutionary. Evolutionary, the idea here is that we're about to finish. Bear with me. The idea here is that humans have specialized areas of competence produced by our evolutionary heritage. Guys! Evolutionary psychologists believe we understand a system best if we understand the evolutionary pressure on our ancestors. I'll give you one example for this. Okay. According to evolutionary, we retain what is best for us. We retain what works for us, right? One example can be, how many of you have wisdom tooth? How many of you have wisdom tooth? No? You don't even know about it? One person has. You know it, but you don't have it. According to the evolutionary perspective, it's a lot of people don't have it because it's of no use to us anymore. Earlier, it was of much use. Why? Because we used to eat things more raw than how we are eating now. Okay? So we needed that tooth. But now we don't need it anymore. We cook everything. Right? Thank you so much. What else? Another evolutionary perspective I'll tell you, okay? We all know the term stress, right? You and I, we all know the term stress, right? But then why is it that everyone is saying that I'm so stressed? Even students like you, you're like, I'm so stressed. Every time so stressed. Q. Let's look at this from an evolutionary perspective, okay? Evolutionary perspective में earlier आपको fight or flight का response सुना है? Fight or flight, okay? So what happens? So suddenly अगर यहाँ पे एक bear आ गया, नहीं तो एक lion आ गया, yours and mine, fight or flight will be instigated. So a lot of us will be running. Some of us will be fighting. Some of us might even freeze also, right? So that's the response, right? Earlier, guys, please quiet down. Yes, so a lot of us, earlier, back in the days when there was no schools and all, you know, when most of our ancestors were hunters, this fight or flight response was very useful to them because there was real threat. Lion, tiger, bear, whatever, they had to run away. What happened when they see such threat? One of the things that happens is the blood flow to the extremities, right? So the blood may flow to my hands so that I can fight. My blood flows to my feet so that I can run. Has any of you run away from a dog? Has any of you experienced being chased by a dog? Yes. You run like anything. You don't even know how you ran, right? So because your blood flows to your leg and your blood also flows to your head and you are able to see more like clearly in the sense that you know where you're supposed to run, right? And you're thinking very, very fast. That's what happens when you have that flight or fight response, okay? But nowadays, and also because all the functions are in the extremities, your middle portion is left. So your stomach is saying, you need to escape right now. You don't need to digest anything, right? So that is one thing that stopped. Another thing that stopped is your urinary function. So it's saying you don't need to focus on me right now. You don't need to focus on whether I have to pee or not right now. You just have to fight or run away. That's what happened to our body, right? But nowadays in the societies that you live, have you ever faced a tiger face to face? No. What about a lion? A bear? Have you ever had a threatening situation where you had to like run or fight the situation? Not really. But why are we so stressed? Workload. Let's come to that. From evolutionary perspective, the threat that we are facing right now is for you and me, especially for you guys, you know, what the belief that we have, our society have that, you know, अगर मेरा एग्ज़ाम सही से नहीं हुआ, मेरा life खत्म. That's the threat. And it's an ongoing threat all the time. It's an ongoing threat. You live with this threat. And your body is not accustomed to be like that. Your body is accustomed to getting over that threat. But then your threat is always constant. Right now you are thinking about kal kya hoga, exam kya hoga, BA pass nahi karege to kya hoga life mein. So it's like you actually believe that my life depends on this exam. So what does your body do? Your body does not function properly because all the blood is going to the extremities, right? So you start, because of stress, you start having ulcer or digestive problem, right? Some people even have urinary issue also, right? Because of stress. Evolutionary perspective, all right? Anyway, the last one, ecological. Ecological cognition does not occur in isolation from larger cultural contexts. All cognitive activities are shaped by the culture and by the context in which they occur. So whatever you have learned, whatever have been taught to you, remember it so much by our culture that we see problem the way our culture tells us to see. We solve problem the way our culture tells us to see. Example, if you are to put this candle on the wall, but when you burn it, the wax should not fall on the floor. How would you solve this problem? इस कैंडल को वॉल में लगाना है, ठीक है? अगर जब ये बर्न करोगे तो the wax should not fall on the floor. How would you put the candle? These are boxes of pins. This is matchstick. How would you put it up on the wall? One of the ways where our culture, our school system have made us think is that the first solution that you might have come up with is pin le loge, you will stick the pin on the candle, stick it on the wall, right? This is also possible, right? So what does the ecological system says? Because we have been doing some like we have been solving problems or issues in one particular way, we always end up solving things in one particular way, in that particular way. And this is, this is something that culturally also we end up seeing a problem according to how our culture tells us to solve. So if the family is suffering, culturally what we are taught, if it's a boy, engineering, if it's a girl, doctor, right? अगर family पैसे में सफ़र कर रहे हैं तो what is the cultural way of solving the issue? हाँ? Government job. बेटे को पढ़ाओ, government job दिला दो. That's the cultural way of solving problems, right? How do we get out of that? Anyway, all right. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you for being attentive. All right, thank you. Is there any question? Oh, that's what we have to learn also. That's something that we learn to. Just give me one sec. One sec. हाँ.
Then connectionist में क्या था?
Connect. Just ये निकालो.
निकाल दो.